Hi, I'm Brett Jones, and I'm a professor and motivation scientist at Virginia Tech. This presentation provides an overview of self-worth theory and answers the questions, what is self-worth theory? And what do instructors need to know about self-worth theory? The basic premise of self-worth theory is that individuals struggle to give their lives meaning by seeking the approval of others, which involves being competent and able, and avoiding the implications of failure, that one is incompetent, hence unworthy. Take a minute to let this sink in, because this one sentence is quite profound, and I believe that it explains a lot of human behavior. This basic premise has also been described as a formula, where P equals A equals W, which stands for performance equals ability equals worth. In other words, performance, such as grades, reveals ability, hence worth. Let's look at some of the main ideas in self-worth theory. One idea is that excuses serve as self-protection. When students don't do well, excuses allow them to protect their self-worth. Excuses allow students to avoid revealing their ignorance and account for their lapses in their responsibility. Both of these are important because remember that people want to be competent, which they can't do if they reveal their ignorance or don't account for their lapses in their responsibility. Atkinson proposed that achievement processes can be viewed as a conflict of two opposing forces, tendency to approach success and tendency to avoid failure. You can be high or low on both of these forces. One way to view this is as a quadrupolar model, as shown here, where a person can range from low to high on approach and low to high on avoidance. We see the tendency to approach success in the upper right quadrant because a student here would be high on approach and low on avoidance. The tendency to avoid failure is in the lower left quadrant because a student here would be low on approach and high on avoidance. Covington also documented OverStrivers, which are shown in the upper left quadrant because they are high on approach and high on avoidance. They are simultaneously drawn to and repelled by the prospects of achievement. They avoid failure by succeeding. They try to ensure that they will succeed by putting forth a lot of effort into studying. Because it's difficult to consistently over-prepare, they occasionally fail, which is unfortunate because they fail after putting forth a lot of effort, which can lead them to believe that they lack ability. To deal with this, they may become closet achievers, in that they complain that they have little time to study, even though they have secretly studied a lot. Therefore, if they don't do well, they can attribute it to a lack of preparation. And if they succeed, they can take credit for being smart because they supposedly succeeded without really trying. Defensive pessimism is another strategy these students use. They have unrealistically low expectations for success, so that if they exceed their expectations, they are rewarded. And if they fail, it's okay because they didn't expect to succeed anyway. As a result of these strategies, overstrivers have trouble handling a single minor setback in their grades without feeling totally devastated. These failures remind them of their inadequacies and what they have feared all along, that they are not perfect. Finally, Covington has described failure-accepting students as those who are low in approach and low in avoidance. These students are indifferent or apathetic about their mediocre achievement, which allows them to use their lack of effort as a defense mechanism. They risk nothing, so they lose nothing. Unfortunately, these students generally have given up trying to appear smart, probably after many failures. They may have become content with mediocrity and seek approval by being helpful and by being a team player. So to summarize, this quadrupolar model of need achievement allows us to understand students' motivation within the context of self-worth theory. Another main idea in self-worth theory is the many roles that anxiety plays in the achievement process. Anxiety can motivate students to put forth greater effort, although it may not always be effective effort. Anxiety can be problematic in that it can be intrusive worry that can interfere with the thinking and learning processes. Where does anxiety come from? Well, from the self-worth theory perspective, anxiety can be caused by the fear that we may not be competent, and thus not worthy. Remember how I said before that performance equals ability equals worth. So if we fear that we might not be worthy, we will be anxious. Covington explains that it is also more complicated than this, and that there are different stages. Let's start by going through the stages for a failure-avoiding student. Remember that these students are high on avoidance and low on approach. The first stage is the appraisal stage, where students judge whether an upcoming test is a challenge or a threat. Failure-oriented students tend to see the upcoming test as a threat more than a challenge. Students then begin to prepare for the upcoming test. In this test preparation stage, Covington found that the failure-oriented students did several things to protect their competence and self-worth. Typically, they denied the importance of the test, or thought that the test was an invalid way to measure their ability. They also set irrational goals and procrastinated. As a result of these ineffective strategies, they were unprepared to do well in the test. In the test-taking stage, students had to remember what they had learned, but they were put in a situation with turmoil and tension. The failure-avoiding students had roiling emotions and subvocal worries, such as, "Why are others finishing early? I must be dumb." These interfering thoughts had negative effects on their recall of information and on their achievement. In this way, anxiety is not the direct cause of poor test scores, but rather the possibility of incompetence, which led to the anxiety, leads to ineffective study strategies, which leads to low achievement. In addition, students' emotions and worries during the test can lead to difficulty remembering during the test, which can also contribute to low achievement. So students' low achievement is really a combination of things that occur before and during a test. Now let's look at the effects of anxiety on overstrivers. Remember that they are high on approach and high on avoidance. In the test preparation stage, they studied hard to avoid failure by succeeding. In the test-taking stage, they can have problems retrieving information, yet after the test, they can easily recall this information. Although I have not provided a complete description of self-worth theory, I have covered some of the main points and would like to now start to answer the question, what do instructors need to know about self-worth theory? Covington addresses this question by suggesting that instructors use a problem-based approach, which he describes as having three mutually reinforcing elements: transparency of goals, redressing the mismatch of roles and responsibilities, and the use of criterion-referenced grading. First, instructors should be clear about the purpose and goals of the course. One way to accomplish this is to use problem-based learning approaches, which allow content to be used to solve meaningful problems. It's important to be clear about what is expected of students for them to succeed. When students understand the expectations, it can reduce their anxiety. With respect to redressing the mismatch of roles and responsibilities, Covington suggests that problem-solving tasks should provide a challenge that balances the odds of success and failure. That is, an activity or assignment should be challenging, but not so challenging that students who put forth the effort and correct strategies do not succeed. Ideally, these challenges should be interesting to the instructor as well. Doing so redresses the mismatch of roles and responsibilities to which Covington refers. That is, the achievement goals of both the students and the instructor are aligned. He refers to this as a community of scholars. To solve such challenges, it will likely be necessary to have students work in collaboration with one another. The third element of this problem-based approach is criterion-referenced grading. Grade should be viewed as information that is needed to become a productive learner, instead of being viewed as a threat to one's competence. Thus, the evaluation of one's work provides measurable progress towards answering the problem. One way to do this is to use what Covington calls grade choice arrangement. In this method, students work for any grade they choose by amassing grade points on a predetermined schedule. For example, an instructor could identify a lot of different assignments and make them each worth different points according to the difficulty or time required to complete them. Students could then choose which assignments they wanted to complete and complete as many as they wanted until they got enough points to get the grade they desired. Covington explains that this method works because success is a direct result of students' effort. It ensures feelings of fairness because the student's grade is dependent on him and not other students. And good grades are available to everyone, so it's not a competition among students where some may succeed and others may fail. Now I want to place these strategies related to self-worth within the bigger picture of motivating strategies that can be used by instructors to motivate students. The music model of academic motivation provides key motivation principles for instructors to consider when designing instruction. A more complete explanation of the music model is provided elsewhere, such as in Jones 2009 and at the motivatingstudents.info website. But here I want to briefly explain the model and how the instructional strategies related to self-worth fit into the music model instructional strategies. The music model states that instructors need to ensure that students believe that they have some control over some aspect of their learning, understand why the content is useful, believe that they can succeed if they put forth the effort, are interested in what they're supposed to be learning, and believe that the instructor cares about whether they meet the course objectives. These 5 key principles can be remembered by using the acronym MUSIC. The implications for instructors provided by Covington for self-worth theory align directly with the instructional strategies in the music model. I will now show how all of the instructional strategies from the previous slides fit into the 5 broader categories of instructional strategies in the music model. One of the implications for self-worth theory was to use grade choice arrangement, where students were able to choose their assignments. Providing choice is consistent with the empowerment strategies in the music model, because it states that students need to have some control over their actions. One of the main strategies in Covington's problem-based approach to instruction is to be clear about the purpose and goals of the course. Doing so allows students to see the usefulness of the course. Many of the instructional implications from self-worth theory are related to the success component of the music model. This makes sense because remember that one of the basic premises of self-worth theory is that individuals strive to be competent and avoid being incompetent. The way to show that you're competent is to be successful. One strategy consistent with success is for instructors to have clear expectations so that students know what they need to do to succeed. Another strategy is to provide challenging tasks that balance the odds of success and failure. With respect to grading, grades can provide information that students need to become successful, productive learners. Connecting grades to students' effort can allow students to feel successful if they put forth the effort. And finally, students may be more likely to feel successful if they know that they are in control of their success and that grades are not competitive and based on the grades of other students. Covington's problem-based approach also emphasizes student collaborations, which can lead to caring relationships. Also, students may feel more cared for if they believe that the instructor is working to grade fairly. The instructional strategies provided here are ones that were discussed explicitly in Covington's 2009 chapter, but clearly there are more implications that are consistent with the music model. For example, using the problem-based approach could allow for students to solve interesting problems, which would align with the interest component of the music model. As you can see, the teaching implications for self-worth theory fit well within the organizational structure of the music model. The purpose of this presentation was to provide an overview of self-worth theory. More explanation of this theory can be found in the references cited here. I have links to other information and videos on my website at www.motivatingstudents.info. Feel free to contact me by email at brettjones@vt.edu.